I've taken to describing myself at the moment as a facilitator of interesting projects because I do various different activities, everything from product design and development to facilitating and enabling events, which is mostly what I'm going to talk about today. I only take on projects that are interesting to me so that they're economically but also environmentally and socially sustainable. And I set these priorities in my life. It's a small hack that anybody can make to make your own life a little bit sweeter, and also I feel that's important in the way that we work and the way that we conduct ourselves. I only like to deliver value, so I set those parameters. So the subject of this talk is building a beta world. So first off, I'm going to define what I mean by a beta world. So beta, I'm taking the programming interpretation, so beta as a prototype, and all of the things that come with prototype, that it's not yet finished, and therefore it comes with an inherent permission to change it. And I'm interested in applying these ideas to every aspect of the world, every aspect of society, not personally, but I believe that we should be thinking about the world in this way, that it's something that is hackable, something that we have permission to engage with and to change and to prototype and to experiment and to try something new. Because I believe that only by trying something new can we actually find ways out of this. Also going to add a disclaimer. I'm probably going to ramble. I'm going to try and keep things on track, but I also might use terms which are familiar to my specific demographic or the communities that I hang out with. So if at any point I use a term you don't understand or you want to make the whole thing interactive, I would rather it was interactive, so please feel free to stick your hand up and speak up at any point. But I still have a common thread, hopefully, to pursue. Also, I think it's important to state that I'm not anti-anything in this provocation. It's not that I believe that we should only have a beta world or only a prototyped world in place of the existing capitalist system or whatever. I don't find it's really valuable to get involved in these discussions, because then people have an inherent philosophical, are you right to say that capitalism is bad? I don't really care. I just want to try something different, and I want to try something new for myself to find a life that I feel is valuable and a life that I want to live in. So those are the parameters that I'm defining. I'm for alternatives, but I'm not necessarily anti anything else. And also, why should we experiment? Why should we look at different alternatives? Why should we explore? At the moment, I mean, this is the one argument that I would place, is that we're leading towards a more homogeneous society, a more homogeneous system, where everything is too big to fail, and everything is the same. And the problem with anything that's the same is that it's all susceptible to the same problems. So with crops, for example, you get blight. So I believe personally we should actually be looking towards growing new varieties of society, looking at new ways in which we can engage in economic systems, in which we can create value for ourselves, in which we can provide for our basic needs, but actually to think beyond that and actually live a very good quality of life in parallel, perhaps, to the existing system. Maybe not completely outside it, but we have to start somewhere. So one of the problems also with the existing model, an economic model, is very much based on what I call the God model. So this is a hierarchical complex that we attach to everything. This is a paradigm of control. And because of this model, you get a lot of bottlenecks, you get a lot of problems. People say what you can and you can't do, what you should and shouldn't do. And you have to look to the top in order to change everything. The top is generally inaccessible. So I'm thinking more of a kind of Darwinian model, where we start to explore new ideas, we start to explore new products, new economies, new ways of being, new everything, essentially. And the strongest survive, the most successful, the ones that are better suited to our individual lives, our local lives, are something that we can apply, attach, and copy for ourselves. We can create our own clones from the existing knowledge and patterns that are out there. Another metaphor, and I think metaphors are very important because this is all about storytelling and the way that we see the world, the way in which we perceive the world. And a lot of the talk about the system comes from this factory paradigm and also the God model paradigm. And seeing people as cogs in the wheel or parts of the machine, we're human beings, we're not cog-shaped. We need to think more in terms of garden models and ecosystems and things that are more friendly to us as individuals. This is actually also an interesting project based in Berlin in Tempelhof at UFA, which is well worth checking out. You can go and you can build your own garden there. They provide the soil, you bring your own wood, and you create whatever you want. So where do we start? Where do we begin when we look at the world, when we look at what's going on and what's happening? I really like the quote from William Gibson, which is, "The future is here, but it isn't very evenly distributed." I would actually go a step further and say that multiple futures are here at any given point in time. And it's a case of choosing our own adventure. We have to actually look at what is within the world that we can use and we can appropriate. And there are numerous models and systems evolving, new protocols, new ways of being, that we can look at these patterns. We can choose for ourselves. We can say, I want a part of this life. I want to copy this life and appropriate it. I want to amplify it. But first you have to define what you actually want for yourself. This is a term I just discovered today framed as culture hacking. So actually looking at the elements of the system or elements of culture that work. And there's numerous writing. I mean, you're all capable of using Google, so I'm not going to patronize you too much. But there are numerous examples around the world of alternative cultures, alternative systems, alternative projects that are being applied everywhere. And I'm sure Bas and Peter have already discussed them. So. But we can get to that later if there is time. But just to highlight a few, these are some examples. So permaculture, verticulture, looking at open source hardware for gardening projects, building swarm counterintelligent clones to free up the web, or LED grow lights that allow you to build stuff within your own home. I think one of the important entry points for actually hacking or for engaging in creating these better worlds also begins with yourself. So the Treehouse project that was mentioned earlier, I found that by focusing on my own life and what I want to hack to provide for myself and to improve my own life gives me a certain motivation and inclination. So I question what the problems are and the challenges are within my own life and look at how I can apply existing technology that other people have learned to my own life. So the compact living thing here, or the 100 Things Challenge, has definitely been influential in my thought. And I've discovered that by reducing my belongings and living in a tree house, I've not only made it easier for me to keep my life sorted and keep my life clean, but also it just generally comes with much less baggage and much less maintenance, and I feel a lot freer for it. So all of this may seem a little challenging, but I assure you it's not. And I want to address actually how we overcome this inertia both individually but also collectively through events. Because events for me are the way in which you overcome this inertia first off. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you can just make a small announcement about your intent towards a specific event. So, for example, this event has been a motivating factor for me to try and frame some of my thoughts. But it can be anything amongst a group of friends or a party or whatever, whereby you want to share a specific thing or define a specific outcome with another group of people, and then you create instantaneous social pressure for yourself to get shit done, or to learn something, or to share something. There are numerous operations and examples in which you can use this. Events really rock. They are a totally socially transformative experience, and I think we should be looking at them collectively more in terms of knowledge transfer, but also in terms of psychological experience and psychological benefit. So this is an example from the Burning Man Festival, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with. It's a festival in the desert, which essentially creates a, I think, 8-day-long temporary autonomous zone where no money is exchanged. People explore barter economies. They evolve their own ecosystems, infrastructures, and this is happening in the desert on a near to city-wide scale. So if you imagine that experience culturally, that's already changing perception in some way. The more of the events that we do like that allow people to experience something different, And it also creates this context in space and time where people can be free and they can think differently. It's not like saying, change the rules of your life forever. You say, change the rules of your life for 8 days, a day, an hour. Just go with it for a second. Just experience it for a second. You can even do it in 5 minutes. At previous events, we've done speed networking. We asked people for 5 minutes of their time, lined them up on the stairs, changed them over every minute. After a minute, they wanted 3 minutes. After half an hour, I was still shouting up the stairs, and the queue was snaking down into the event, spilling out. Security was trying to move people. But we didn't ask for a lot of time, just ask for enough. But once people get the experience, then they give more of their time. So events are really a very powerful tool in transforming culture and actually making a difference. Another case study or an example of case in point, and this also comes from a principle called Start Anywhere, Follow It Everywhere, from a book called Walk On, Walk Out, Walk On. It's a bit of a hippie book in terms of the way it's written, but there's some really interesting patterns and case formats that you can look at and rediscover, and this is one of them. So just begin something. Just begin making something. Begin exploring something. And then just see where it leads. And invariably, you will find that it opens up new paths and it creates new opportunities. So by way of example, I started just over 2 years ago experimenting with bioplastics with Chris During. We got a product, a recipe from YouTube, how to cook your own plastic. And we were interested in open materials and how you could create your own materials and bake your own products in your own home. As a result of this experimentation, we got invited to an event to share, which was an open design event at Beta House called Delivered in Beta. And you can see some of the outcomes here. From this event, it actually built a community, which then led to a further opportunity that the ODC, Open Design City, actually was created. This is a space that I co-founded with the people that we participated in various events, and from this community that grew just from these simple happenings. We ended up actually creating a co-working, co-making, co-producing, and sharing space, essentially by accident. The original history was that Christoph Fahler emailed the list and said, Beta House are interested in a Fab Lab. I said, great. We sat down and talked for an hour, and he said, okay, you start in 3 weeks. And we moved in, and we just started with this context, with this story. What would you do here? This is an opportunity for you to share your skills, your knowledge, your space, your ideas. You have the chance to build this. And from this very simple story, people came and started to offer their skills, offer their products. One guy, Christophe Vaillant, who you'll hear about later, brought in a CNC machine. Philip Stefan, who's here at the show, brought in a MakerBot. And just from this storytelling and this permission to engage, people started to engage with this space and grow this space. And that was all stemmed from an event. The second event that came out of it was also the Maker Lab. The Maker Lab was, again, a coordinated and coordinated event where 40 people from within Berlin, but also the Waag Society from Holland, and various, I think you were there, weren't you, Peter? Yeah. Peter came and participated. And the permission in this event was, we have this space at DMY. We have these tools provided by Waag, an Open Design City. What would you like to do here? What would you like to share here? All we really did was created the opportunity and the context, and then came the architecture, then came the tools, then came the workshops. And within this 4-day period, we had a very intense lab of discussion and interaction and sharing of knowledge and exchange of knowledge and building of communities, many of whom are still working together, many of whom are still collaborating together, and a real energy came out of this. We also made the whole project open source, and 9 such labs have now taken place globally. The event itself is still evolving, but the essential aspect of it is the permission to engage and the autonomy. Another such event, and one that I'm really interested in with the perspective of storytelling, was MakerPlatz. So something I've missed out already with respect to the Maker Lab is it's a symbiotic event. And this is another concept I think we need to really think about and appropriate, which is one of leverage. we have to leverage existing networks, we have to leverage existing events, and we have to think intelligently about how we do what we do. So the Maker Lab originally existed within the context of DMY, and each subsequent one happened within another existing event. And this gives you a chance and an opportunity to engage with a public that you wouldn't normally engage with. It gives you a chance to bring the culture to people that wouldn't normally experience it, and to give them the chance to learn something new and contribute something new, but also to learn something from the culture you're interacting and engaging with. So the Makerplatz actually took place in symbiosis with 3 separate events that were happening around the Moritzplatz area. So the Beta House was hosting the People in Beta Festival, the Aufbau House, which hosts its own Fab Lab pretty much, has laser cutting services, has materials, has a number of crafting communities, has a cafe and a sewing space where you can go and learn to sell. And Beta House contains the Open Design City, which I referred to earlier. We're all hosting events within the same period of time. Aufbau House invited us to do something within their event. Beta House invited us to do something within theirs. So we decided to create a symbiotic festival happening actually within the whole frame. And originally Maker Lab Moritzplatz, but I mentioned it to a friend, Semiramis, who then suggested, Makerplatz. And then from this idea, the meme was planted. Actually, Moritzplatz is Makerplatz. This space is really a hub for makers. We have all of the tools here. We have all of the knowledge here. We have 6 communities that have built up around Open Design City and numerous other ones. We have Etsy Labs behind us. We have essentially a distributed Fab Lab within this space and more. So why don't we reframe this? Why don't we just tell the story? Why don't we just highlight it to the public and say, this is a space where makers can come and make, and you can come and make, and you can come and learn. And again, we opened the process. We said, okay, we have these spaces secured now within these events and these festivals. What would you like to come and do? And from the networks that we've built, and also networks beyond, just by sharing this knowledge and hosting a party. And I also want to stress how easy this was to do, because I think often when people see the outcomes and the variety and everything that happens, this was not difficult. This was an autonomous process. So these outcomes came from the first planning party. We hosted a party in the Aufbau House, and we invited people to come along and network and meet one another. And then we invited them to share on the wall what events and activities they would like to offer within the Makerplatz frame. The frame was, what would you like to share? What would you like to make? What would you like to produce? And how can we demonstrate that this space here, Moritzplatz, is actually Makerplatz? And then just give people permission to participate and to build and create. And this was the first outcomes. So we had shirt remaking workshop, we had design thinking, open source electronics. But this is only a small crux of what was happening. We actually had, I think, 40 or 50 events taking place within the space, within a 2-day period. This poster was also just created by TenHawk16 on the basis of a conversation. The photo was provided by Kai Strasser, who immediately went down on first hearing the Makerplatz idea, went down into Moritzplatz Station, took a photo, and then edited it on Photoshop and just started contributing. Because people wanted to be a part of this story. They liked the story. They were interested in the story. And they wanted to play their role within it. What you see behind you was a roaming box which was distributing live stream footage from a live journalist that was going around at the event, which was built 2 days before the event by some of the participants, Brina and Kai and Ben, and various others. You'll have to visit the website to get a full lowdown, because I can't give 60 people's names right now. But also, again, within events, I want to highlight the benefit of community and just creating the opportunity and space for people to come and know one another and talk to one another. So this was a picnic on the Platz to get people thinking differently about the space. We had bike workshops. This is Christophe Vaillant, who's doing bike hacking, and this was hacking bikes without welds. We also had pallet furniture. We also had spontaneous interactions and interventions that we didn't even know were going to happen within the space. So this was a red line of tape that ended up emerging symbolically in the space to join all of the 4 spaces of the Makerplatz, to really say this is here. And it allowed us to change the direction and the explanation of the space. We just said, if you want to find what's going on, follow the red line. It also started to change the notion of the space for the people that were engaging in the space. So, for example, where this red line crossed the road, the pedestrians, they saw the line and they said, this line is for me. And the cars saw the line and they were like, what's this line? And they paused just long enough for the pedestrians to take that assertion. So we actually created a pedestrian crossing with 1 piece of sticky tape. And this is one of the things I think you discover when you start to hack or when you start to think about the world in this way. There are all of these social cues. There are all of these stimuli that we get. And most of us are actually kind of really cognizant of these patterns, and we're defined by these rules. But these are also opportunities. Each rule is an opportunity to change something and to make something different. And with 1 bit of sticky tape, you can change the entire interaction at a junction. We also did this at toilets, noticing that the men's and the ladies' toilets, the men's were always empty, the ladies always had a queue. So why not just put a piece of tape over each door, and suddenly you've got flow within the toilet, nobody's waiting, everybody's happy. You can do a lot with a piece of sticky tape. Hacking is not difficult. It's just a case of thinking, understanding, looking at the system and the way that things work, and then identifying the path of least resistance or the simple thing that can twist and change something. So eventually, as a part of the Makerplatz became the Makerplatz. So we hacked the U-Bahn signs, so everything said Makerplatz in the local area, so it was really in the physical space. So as well as just verbal storytelling, we were actually also telling the story in the space itself through the action. And reality has a powerful effect on that. Even if it's just a small hack and it's obviously a hack, it goes into people's minds. They think about it. They see things slightly differently, and you can change their perception. Again, I'm going to come back now to the point of autonomy. Autonomy was really critical in this process. Whilst I helped to define the context, whilst I helped to say, okay, this is a story we're creating, and these are the spaces in which you can engage. The main thing running the whole event was the people that participated. This guy, Emre, got his parents to pay for him to come over, especially from Turkey, because he wanted to be a part of the event. And I was really concerned that he was coming from Turkey and he had certain expectations. So I said, really, you have to understand, you have to take this stuff into your own hands. And he really did, literally went out into the streets with his own self-made sign and rounded up 20 people to come into his workshop, which they all enjoyed. And this was a fantastic learning experience for him, but it was also, it's wonderful to see just how people take the opportunity to create something for themselves and for other people when you just give them permission. Permission is really the key, and this is also why I talk about prototyping the world. We have to see the world as this permissive space where we are permitted to change it and to improve it. And if we want to change things, then we should, and or build something parallel, experiment and see what works. But above all, we have to just begin something. So back to the storytelling. I really like this quote by Antoine Saint-Exupéry, which is, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men and gather wood, divide the work and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And this, I believe, is one of the things that we really need to find. We constantly look at the process of hacking or analyze the background or the underlying philosophy of hacking. We need to identify the relevance for people and to create visions that people want to be a part of, allow them to appropriate those visions for themselves. Because the knowledge and the tools are all distributed. The resources are already there. We can already find them. But we need to think about the stories and the visions and the world that we actually want to build with this and what we want to create with this opportunity. The world is our toolbox. So we need to identify first what it is we want to build. And I encourage you all to go out there and start building. Thank you.